are now checking out
the Win Podcast,
where the everyday people
are the celebrities.
So let's get to know them. You know, let's start it off, man. Who are you?
Aldys, La Ciencia Poética. That's the poetry name that I go by, which means the science of poetry. And I'm just a Dominican immigrant, came here to the United States. I was 13 years old and came, in the pursuing the American dream. A lot of our parents leave. My father actually left when I was like about 7 days old. Like he headed out to this country.
He was like, "Yeah, I want that American dream." Yeah, you crying too much.
He was just in search, looking for a better life, and ever since then, he just started he was pursuing trying to get his family over to the United States because over there we believe that there's a better life here in the United States, that came around. I was about 13 years old. I was starting high school, and I came here, and it was horrible. I'm talking about when I first came and I'm looking around, I was just I'm from the campo over there, so it's just it's a complete shock. Like I'm over here looking at this.
So in DR, when you say the campo, right? For the listeners who don't know, it's pretty much like the forest or something like that. Or
it's like the countryside. It's like the countryside. So it's over there. My family like my abuela and my grandmother, they have their own farms and stuff like that. So that's what we're around. I walk outside and the chickens are just walking by me, and stuff like that.
How was that shock when you came to New York City?
I was in awe. I was just oh my God, look at these buildings. I've been to the city over there, but the city in DR compared to the city here they're complete opposites. So it was a big shock. And then, but the biggest thing came when I actually started going to school. Back in DR, because I knew I was coming here, so I always took English classes, and I was always an A student. So I'm thinking that when I come, it's going to be a little bit easy. And when I first get into school, they're simply, saying phrases like, "Yo, what's up?" And in my head, I'm translating that in Spanish, and I'm just like, "What's up? ¿Qué está arriba?" So it was very I didn't know the language. Let's just say that. I might know how to write.
One of my favorite stories, right? Was we're part of that environment, so they were like, "Yo, what's up, nigga? How you doing?" Right? And then I remember Neto was like, "At least you don't say that," because the way you was gonna say it with your accent was not gonna go by. I remember Ernesto shared. I was like, "You don't say that until you learn how to speak it well, so it doesn't come off very off or bad or whatever."
At one point, actually, real funny story. Now that you said that, we went to play handball at some point, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking I'm down now. Yeah. So, and we have a couple of black friends, and I actually came out and say, I was like, "What up, Negroes?" And one of them looked at me and even took out a blade. He was like, "Yo, John, he's just joking. He don't even know what he's saying."
He just came.
So I was like, "Yo, my bad. I thought it was cool, But yeah.
How difficult was it for you to, I guess, adapt into this new life? You was sharing it. You was explaining a little bit, because what fascinates me about you, right, is that you could have easily gave up with the challenges that was already brought to you. You could have been, added to the statistics of a guy that comes over here and doesn't do anything and that's it, right? But no, you decided, yeah, it's tough, but I guess figure this shit out. What made you not give it up and just I gotta make something of myself or try to figure out this new life now?
I mean, when I first came, it was, like I said, I started going to school, and going to school was the most shocking thing ever, because I went over there, everybody knew me, I was an A student. I was a person that they go to whenever they needed, they were doing a show, anything like that. And then I come here, and I was always like just quiet, kind of like in the corner for like the very first time. Teachers asking me questions. My only answer is I don't speak English. And it just, I really dedicated myself. Like I was really trying really hard. Like I'm walking around with a dictionary, like trying to learn. But it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be here no more. I want to leave. And I told my father, and my father sat me down, and he was like, well, listen, I worked very hard to get you here, and this is where we live now. This is where we're gonna, make our life. It gets better. I just need you to try harder. And it wasn't until my second semester here where I actually found a teacher that really started helping me, because she saw that I was trying really hard. And there were other kids that were, that been here for a little bit longer. They still didn't know the language, but they knew a little bit more than me. But instead of helping, they would kind of like make fun, because they already knew enough to get around and hang out with the cool crew around that school. And that was just me, just kind of still like struggling. I was still very short. Yeah. Like I really had my growth like late. So I was the shortest one. I'm the youngest one in my high school. But then this teacher, her name is Miss LaFawn, which I tried searching for her. I couldn't find her, just to thank her now. But she saw how much effort I was putting in. And even though she didn't speak Spanish, she was Haitian. But so she was Haitian. She was from Haiti. I'm from the Dominican Republic, but she saw my struggle, and she really took me on, and she started getting me, instead of going to lunch, she was like, come to my office, and I'll give you extra classes. Like, I'll work with you. I'll give you extracurriculum activities. We work on your pronunciation and, all of these things. So I'm going to school, and instead of going to lunch and, or hang out with the other kids, like any free period that I had, I used to go there. She would help me with my homeworks. Like all of that stuff, and that was like her taking out of her time.
No, I think that's so beautiful, because I was gonna ask you what was the motivation, but the motivation was you saw someone that believed in you. Yeah. And what was so crazy is that the amount of belief that she had in you, you started believing in yourself. And what's so fascinating is that she didn't know Spanish, and she knew English, and you guys had the same story of coming from another country and feeling like an outsider. But now you guys are like communicating, I feel like almost spiritually and like through a faith. She's teaching you English, you know Spanish, she doesn't know Spanish, but she knows English, you're trying to understand English. So it's like almost this chemistry that's speaking for each other, for you guys in that moment as well, along with this language. And man, kudos to her and for you, man, to like really absorb that relationship, because that's very powerful.
Yeah, and it was, my father told me, like, hey, we're here to stay. So I said, hey, I made it happen over there. I was, whenever I put my mind to something, I was always able to accomplish it. So, why has this got to be different?
What is something that, and it's like a two-part question, what is something that Dominican Republic taught you about yourself? And then what did the United States teach you about yourself? Because you come from two different countries, two different worlds. They're basically teaching you two different lifestyles and two things about yourself, right? So what was that for you? What did DR teach you about yourself, and what did you learn about coming here to America? What did it teach you about yourself? My upbringing, I say, was very is based over there in DR. It's very like family oriented. Is you got to do right. So like I'll say like the base is what I got from over there. The foundation of everything. For example, a lot of people, look at me like, oh, I'm a mama's boy. But, I grew up with my mom. That was so, and I grew up around like old women pretty much, because I didn't meet my father until I was like 4 or 5. Because that was when he was finally able to go back to DR. Right. So that's when I finally got to meet him. So all growing up, I grew up with my mom. She taught me, right and wrong, pretty much. And one of the things that over there, and it's very different from here,
drugs, when I was growing up, drugs in the DR were almost like taboo. Like, you don't do drugs. This is like, if you see somebody, like, run away from that. You don't do this. You don't do that.
Over here it was like,
and
you
then
see
when I
someone
came
smoke weed,
here,
ask him how much it costs.
Yeah. So over here it was completely different because I actually never saw any kind of drugs or anything when I was over there in DR. And here, my first day, I'm walking into the building, somebody smoking weed right outside the building. And I'm like, pretty much in my head, I'm like, what's the smell? My father's like, don't worry about it, just get in. So it was very different. And then I'm coming here, and I'm seeing like how like kids here are a little more liberal over there. Over there, it's just like your parents tell you got to be home at this time. It's like, or my mom is like, I'm outside at 7:00. Ali, like, But over here, they were a lot more liberal. Like, you don't really see your parents. Your parents go to work. You come home. You're pretty much by yourself. So you have to start. You learn to have a little more. You learn to be a little more independent here.
Like the survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
too.
it's like you need to figure it out. Like, hey, your mom is not here no more to make you lunch. So you better figure it out how to make the mango that she's been doing. They're trying to get you to do. So you better figure it out yourself now. So here I learned to be a little more independent, like because I relied a lot on my mom doing a lot of things for me. When I was growing up there, she was always there. She was always taking care of of home. Yeah. Now we get here, she's out working, trying to help my dad, and it's just me and my sister kind of figuring it out.
It's kind of like DR gave you this beautiful foundation of human characteristics and love and being there for each other and and watching out for everyone. And then you come to New York and they take all that shit away from you and they're like, all right, figure it out now. Yeah, I just took your mom. I took all these things away from you right now and figure out how you're going to eat, figure out how you're going to learn to communicate, and it just stripped you from all this stuff. And it was like, see if you can survive, kid. If not, you can either this will make you or break you.
And then I learned too here, like, don't smile when you're walking down the street because you might get jumped.
Don't smile.
That was like my cousin told me. It was like, yo, stop smiling when you walk down the street, man. Like, they gonna look at you like, oh look, he's a tourist. Let's go get him.
And the DR, everyone
you greeting, you just saying hi to everybody. So it was very different. It was.
How and when did poetry come into your life? Were you always writing when you was young, or just one day you just?
I mean, the poetry thing, like I wrote a little bit when I was in DR, but it was more like I did it for it was kind of like a fun thing, like I did like once or twice. I did listen to a lot of music, and I always loved music. I loved the message behind it. And I remember like the actual very first time that I wrote something was a song. And it was because, over there, unlike here or unlike now, we don't have all this technology that's around. So when over there, you got to kind of figure it out, like how to pass your time. So, it's summertime, I'm trying to figure out what to do. We're bored. We started creating instruments, and we created like a little guitar with like a piece of wood and like fishing strings and stuff like that. We created a guitar. We thought like, yeah, we got a guitar. Let's go start a band. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a song. And so it started from there. So that's the first time I wrote. And then we would spend like afternoons like rehearsing this one song over this fake guitar and like some fake drums that we pretty much made. And that was like the introduction to it. And then after that, it was just kind of like I was very shy when it came to like talking to girls. So like the very first time I was like trying to talk to a girl, I'm like, I asked a friend and she's like, write her a letter. And it kind of like started like that, like started writing like a letter here. And then
you remember what you wrote?
Not really. I remember the song.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. More or less. And then after that, when I came here, it was more like, then, I was a little less shy when it came to talking to girls. So, now we're text messaging, and started like text messages started being like the first poem of like poetry that I'm writing. I was like, oh, girls like this stuff. and really it started because I think I started writing poetry because I was like, oh, girls like this stuff.
So it was a tool for you to use your inner voice to attract women.
Yeah.
And then having I know you having a lot of success in that. Then when did it start becoming a tool for you to express yourself with the shit that you're going through?
It was, I remember that a couple of family members, actually, my tío Simeon, tía España, they passed away. And, you know, it was kind of like, you know, that was, I was feeling that, you know, and I didn't know, like, how to, like, express it to people. I didn't know how to talk to people about it. And, you know, I kind of started writing about how, you know, like, fucked up things are, like, in the world. Like, at the moment, it was, like, a whole bunch of things going on, like, you know, can't remember exactly, but it was, like, all these things are going on, and all I'm seeing is, like, negative here, negative there, and, you know, my family's been away. And I remember I started writing a poem about that, and that was, like, one of, like, the first time that I started writing about something that wasn't, like, or, you know, me trying to, like, you know, talking to a girl, me writing a poem to a girl. Like, it wasn't about love. It was more of a, like, hey, this is what's going on. I roll around me. And after that, that kind of shifted. So I started, you know, bouncing back and forth. And then I started writing more often.
How did you feel getting that off your chest on paper? How did you feel afterwards?
Oh, it was like, in one of my poems I say, you know, when I write, it's like this overflowing wealth, like, and it just, things that just started pouring out of me, like the things that I couldn't get out, that I can't talk to you, because even though, you know, I'm a poet, I don't like to talk to people about my feelings. Like, I'm not that great at that. So, like, I'll express my feelings, but I'll hide them, I disguise them in a poem. Like, I'll disguise it. It's about me. I'll just make up a story or something like that, and that's how I'll get it out.
Well, I think a lot of artists, in a sense, do that. You know, where they don't know how to communicate. Is that they could, but they're just never taught that way, right?
Yeah.
They was never taught how to communicate the feelings. It's a weird feeling to be vulnerable, and I get it. You know, and this is when the pen and paper become this beautiful world that they're allowing this freedom and truth to come out of us, and for that moment we're not hiding. We may present it to other people, like, yeah, someone wrote this or I created, but deep down, you know, in that moment you're using that tool to really voice how you really feel. And I think it's something that is very powerful that you do and a lot of people do, and maybe try to learn eventually how to take those things and then say it out. And I guess my next question for that is, when did you reach that moment within yourself? Is like, you know what, I don't want to hide behind this paper. I want to at least perform one of my pieces.
I mean, it was when I really started putting out my work. It was more, I started writing with my cousin Ariel. You know, we started writing back and forth, like we would just, you know, like text message or whatever, send like, oh, look what I wrote. And then, you know, it started first posting like on Instagram. And that's how it started, you know, like.
Yes, I remember that. It was poetry battles. It's not battle, but like, you know, poetry things between you two online.
Yeah, like we call it a Insta cipher or something like that. Yep. So it started with that, and then it was just, you know, me and my cousin, and then people started kind of like tagging on, and, you know, more people started to add on, and I actually made quite a few friends from that. And within that circle, I saw these people and I was a little intimidated at first. I'm like, oh, these people are like so talented. You know, here I am still struggling with the language, because, you know, I didn't feel like I was, like, my poetry was still adequate to, like, you know, compared to theirs. Right. Like, I call myself kind of like comparing a lot, and I'm just like, you know, still to this day, you know, when I write, like my cousin Ariel and my cousin Tiara, who also writes, like, I reach out to them. I'm like, hey, you know, I wrote this, you know, check it out. Like, oh, you know, like, help me edit it. Yeah. You know, because even though I know the language a little more, but I still, you know, always get like. Tiara's still kind of like my editor, my unofficial editor. Gotcha. So, you know, that was a lot of that. And from there, it started going on. And then Diddy actually invited me to one of, like, you know, her shows and stuff like that, and started reading some of her stuff. And then I found myself, you know, just going to the New York a couple of times and actually being out there and performing.
How was that moment for you now, being vulnerable in front of other people? Now, I think there's you're still vulnerable, but I think what helped was that there's a little comfortable side because now you're like, I'm amongst other people that are like me. So,
Yeah.
but how did you feel now when you finally had to go on stage and just let it go?
I was
it?
scared. I was nervous, man. It was just like I found myself, it was like a little shaky, but just kind of shake it off and just put it out there. I was just like, a lot of these people don't necessarily know me, and so what are they gonna do? Like, after I'm done.
Did you said they didn't know you? Did you get to know about yourself now? Bringing it to life.
Oh yeah, I mean, you get to it starts to build up your confidence. I started to feel like, hey, I have a message. The way that I'll bring it out, my writing is going to be a little bit different from other people because of I'm bringing two worlds together. So my writing, my experiences make my writing very unique. It makes it different from there. So I can't look at my poetry compared to his. What he experienced is different from what I experienced. What she experienced is different from what I experienced. So that's when I stopped. At that point, that's when I stopped comparing. I started feeling, like confident about, like, hey, my writing matters.
What did poetry and performing bring to your life that I guess you was maybe looking for, or what did you learn through that whole process?
I mean, I think that when you start, performing, you start, and you stand in front of people, you start to feel a lot more confident. And in my work, I'm looked at as a leader. I need to come up with the answers. I need to be the one that's speaking to people, controlling. So having that confidence, and being able to just voice yourself and express, what you're feeling, or, kind of handle situations differently. So I feel like it helps me, in what I do every day.
Did you still find yourself struggling to communicate about your feelings, like verbally, or writing? It has helped you a little bit, but it's still something you're still trying to find the confidence in that?
I mean, I still don't like to. Like I love writing about the way that I feel. Yes, but necessarily, like if I'm just having a conversation, like that's one of my things. I'm just like,
what is it about? Because so I can understand, what is it about you talking about your feelings that, how you feel verbally, that kind of like throws you off, rather than if you have the paper and you can do it. What is it? Take me to your mind. What is it that you feel? Do you feel like less of a man? Do you feel like oh man, like I'm not supposed to show this right now, like because I have shit together? Like, what is it that goes on in your head that's like, oh my god, let me just write it rather than just fucking verbally say it?
Is letting down your wall. It's letting down that wall that you would have, you build up a persona,
right?
And that's the I'm a strong, confident guy, but at the end of the day, I have my insecurities, and that's I hide those insecurities behind the confident guy that goes, that likes to dress nice and all of that. So when you open up and let's say, we're talking about certain things and I let that guard down, that those insecurities might come out. And I don't, I always think that there's a point in time when to let them out. And, I don't think that that's for everyone to know.
What do you think is going to happen? And I agree, not everyone needs to know, but if you're in a position to share, what do you think is going to happen if you allow yourself to let that guard down to someone, just to be honest, and that wall? Have you ever kind of questioned that? It's like, okay, I always put up this wall. They know about my writing, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever thought, well, maybe let me allow myself to just see what happens with a person that I trust, to let that wall down?
I mean, you have a couple, like, let's say, like, there's a couple of people that know you. Yeah. And they might know from here and there how you feel, but it's just, I have thought about that. I just, and, now I'm in a relationship and, like, slowly, allowing myself to do that.
Right.
It's been a lot of struggle.
Right. I just want to say, man, thank you for being honest with that, right? Because there's a lot of guys like us that, you know, I can relate. You know, it sucks talking, you know, to really, like, it's a beautiful thing, but it sucks talking, being fucking absolutely vulnerable to someone either you love or your family. And I agree with you. It's this wall that we have, that we hide behind these insecurities, but I think it hurts us more. You know, I'm not saying that to tell everyone everything, no, but if you have loved ones, I think it hurts us more building up that wall rather than breaking it down. Building it takes forever, you know, but it's so easy to tear it down and just be free and just like, and the reason why I'm sharing that is because I think, you know, I knew you for a while, and you're an awesome person, and you really are. And you're definitely better than that. And I know you can do that. And I just want to I guess, confirm to you that when you let that wall down, you're going to be fine. It's going to suck because you're like, fuck, like I'm butt naked, which you have no problem with. But you're like, you're butt naked with your feelings. And it's going to feel like, I don't know, learn how to walk. But the more you do it, I'm telling you, you're going to learn so much about yourself. It's like the power that you're giving to these insecurities, to this wall, you're taking it back. And you're like, no, it's fine. I hurt, I cry, I laugh. I have certain things I have to get my shit together. I have things that I have to do. I have things that I already have together. But guess what? This is what makes me Aldys. This is who I am. Whether you love me or hate me, you're going to love me for the right reasons. And you're not going to hate me for this thing that I'm portraying. But you're going to love me for the right thing. And I think, you know, I'm glad that you're taking the steps to go towards that. There's a lot of freedom behind breaking that wall, and there's a lot of struggle keeping it up.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, once you start to make that transition, you start to see, because what you said, you know, that persona that I built, like I had so many friends, and you know, now they're more like just people that I know,
right?
Because, you know, I started separating myself. I started doing, you know, and the reason why I started kind of in that process, I started doing like a lot of like personal development. I started reading a lot to kind of, you know, work on myself. And I started seeing that people saw me as just, you know, very one-dimensional. You know, he's the party guy. Yeah. You know, we're going to call him when we want to have a good time. Yeah. You got to make sure that Aldy's there because he's going to make sure we have all the fun. But then when I came to them in a different way, like, hey, you know, let's do this, blah, blah, like, it was kind of like they backed out. It was like, what do you know about that? And I was like, well, I've always been more than just a party. It's just what you saw, because that's what I let you see.
I love that. And you answer your own question. And, you know, you only gain, you don't lose. Yeah. So by doing that in this whole process, you're going to gain so much. And people that were with you at one phase of your life because you showed that only one phase, they're going to fade away because now you're showing different phases of yourself. And I want you to keep doing that and working towards that, because I'm telling you, you're an amazing human being, and you're only going to flourish even more by doing that. And your relationships is going to flourish even more. How did the name La Ciencia came to be? Like, how did you create it? Where did that come from?
Well, prior to that, I used to be El Chico de las Poesías. But then
that sounds like a merengue típico band.
Well, actually, funny, because then Romeo Santos came out in the songs, El Chico de las Poesías, and then he became that. I was like, oh, I gotta change my name now. I gotta look for something else. But it's funny. The name actually, it wasn't even me that came up with it. It was a name that stuck because it was one of my barbers. You know, I used to go there, spend a lot of time there. I used to get designs all the time on my head, so I was at the barber shop every week. And then, you know, he used to freestyle a lot. And then we started doing the freestyle thing back and forth. And he always said, like, you know, you always have like smart things to say. Like you're very well educated, even about the way that you rhyme and you rap. It was like, I'm gonna call you La Ciencia. And then it started with that, and I was like, ooh, I like that. La Ciencia. You know, like have, you know, things that matter, like say things that matter, not just like, you know, because we were like rapping and stuff like that. And if you know, back in some days, like, you know, when you thought about rap, it was kind of like, you know, Spanish rap. It was like very vulgar and kind of things like that. But I had something different to say, and that name came around, and I just loved it, so it stuck.
Is there a difference to you writing in English and Spanish? I know you love writing in Spanish, but is there a difference for you, like...
Huge.
Okay, explain
Huge
that.
different. In Spanish, I like the way that I can handle the vocabulary. Like I don't I could write about almost anything without necessarily having a deep like feeling, because I'm so good with the words. Like I know my vocabulary is very, extended.
Yeah.
Like I have a broad vocabulary when it comes to Spanish, so it's easy for me to write. It's easier for me to write. When it comes to English, I still struggle. So it has to be like I have to really dedicate some time, and it has to be. I get like sort of like some of these times, like I'm by myself and I get this train of thought, and I'm like, all right, hold up, I gotta find a pen and paper. Like I gotta sit down and I gotta write this now and kind of go back to it. At first, when I was trying to write in English, I was like, all right, let me write a poem in Spanish, then translate it. But that doesn't work because of the way that I write in Spanish. It's very like I use a lot of metaphors, and when you kind of use those things, you translate them, they don't necessarily make sense. But I learned, I started gaining confidence, listening to all the poets, the way that they rhyme, what they use. The way that they use, metaphors, and so it started becoming a little bit easier. So now I say like I have a easier time doing it now, but it's definitely I'm a lot more confident about my poems in Spanish than I am about my poems in English.
Yeah, it seems like the English for you, in some ways, it gives you limitations. Yeah, because you're still learning and stuff like that. But with Spanish, there's an absolute freedom.
There's an absolute freedom that I feel like I'm just very confident about what I can write. And in English, I'm just like, okay, hold up, Google. How do I want to say this word, but like it doesn't rhyme. So where do I get it, or it doesn't quite go with what I'm trying to say here? So I'm like, I spent some time like on Google, like looking like, okay, like adjective, like okay, like what are synonyms? Like what can I use instead of that word, or what can I use here?
If you can meet your teacher that dedicated so much time to you, teaching you and molding you, what were some things you want to say to her?
Well, thank you. Because that was what got me started on the, that started giving me the confidence to say like, hey, I can conquer this language. And even, it was 4th semester because I ran out of that school. That school was horrible, the first school that I went to. It was supposed to be a bilingual school, so it was like, it was supposed to be like you get Spanish class, but like none of my English professors there knew Spanish. And then I had a class that was Spanish class, and I'm like, why am I taking Spanish? I already know how to speak Spanish. But then everything, I got music, a music class. I used to go there and be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, and that was my first period class, like before I did everything. And I was like, I have no idea what he's saying. Like, I didn't get it at all. Like, I had to wait until like I go home, and after I'm taking notes with my, I'm looking it up. I'm like, okay, so this is what this word means. So I'm finding out the lessons like 5-6 hours later after they're done.
So you just basically want to thank her and
it was just
it
was I was able, because of her, I was able to transfer out of there. And started.
She helped you transfer too.
Yeah, she suggested me transferring from that school.
You gotta find that lady somehow.
You
gotta find that lady.
Yeah,
somehow, some way, like Facebook, Google.
I try those.
Keep doing it. I'm telling you, they'll pop up eventually.
Yeah.
Where do you want to take your writing and your performing? Do you where do you want to take it?
Actually, my writing, I do want to write a book. It is something I've been writing more poems and stuff like that. So kind of put that together and write a book, have that published.
That's the ultimate goal. That you want to write a book.
Yeah, definitely write a book, and just start sharing some more. As far as the writing, I feel like one of the things that I want to do, and this just recently came to my mind. It was just like, I haven't really found a place where I could go and just like perform my Spanish poetry. And So I said, like, hey, if that platform isn't out there, why don't I create it? So one of the things, that I have done for friends before who have poetry books and they have published it, I was lucky enough to have a place or a restaurant where I was able to host their release book parties and stuff like that. So what I'm working on now, and I'm, reaching out to certain people trying to get like, a place and stuff like that and have a night, promote like for all these people who probably are going through
for Spanish artists and
for
poetry,
Spanish artists that come and they can come and perform and maybe make that something that sticks, because I know that if I'm looking for it, there's got to be someone else out there that's probably looking for the same thing.
So Aldys, man, we got to know you, and you share so much about your life and also deep within inside you what some of the challenges you had, and I want to thank you for that. And right now we're going to go forward into the first segment of this interview, and it's called Let's Look Inside. The first question for that segment is it says, is there a meaning to life? If so, what is it to you?
The meaning to life, what is it? To find your purpose, to find what you were brought here for, and to share that gift. Once you find your purpose, usually your purpose comes in the form of a gift. I can write poetry. So there are messages that I can write in my poetry that can reach other people. And, maybe somebody's going through a hard time and they come across one of my poems, one of my quotes on a certain day, and that's why I want to get my work out there. And maybe that's what's going to help them get through. So I feel like we're here, we have a purpose, we have things that we have to accomplish, and by accomplishing those things, we're helping other people. For example, my teacher, her purpose is to teach, to help other people. And, maybe to her, I was just another student. Maybe she does that with one student every semester. And, maybe some of them are not even grateful to her. But, here I am still, years later, still saying, wish I could find you to say thank you. Because, her purpose, she found her purpose was to teach. And that helped me get along with life, because if I didn't get that, God knows where I could have ended up.
I agree. The second question is, if you can teach one concept to everyone, what concept will have the most positive impact on humanity?
Concept.
Yeah, like it could be like, one example, I want to teach everyone to love themselves. If you teach everyone to love themselves, that's gonna change the whole world, because it's gonna have a whole positive impact on the humanity. So if you could teach anyone one concept, it could be something as simple as that. What would that be?
To believe in yourself, to have confidence in you, because once you do that, you're able to accomplish a lot more than you think possible. Once you start to have that faith in yourself, you can now teach others how to have that confidence and faith in themselves and believe in themselves. Because you can't, if I don't believe in me, how am I supposed to go and tell my son later on, like, hey, you need to believe in yourself, because I don't believe what I'm preaching.
Love it. The second segment is called Words from My Spiritual Teacher, Guru Enlightenment. You guys have been hearing this on and on again in every episode, so you already know she's my spiritual teacher. You already know, you saw the shows, you already know she have taught me so much and taught many students about spirituality and to believe in yourself, and you have a purpose on this earth. So go fucking do it and stop wasting time. So the purpose of this segment, we're going to share a writing. It could come from a book, it could come from the website, and this one is coming from her book, and we're going to talk about it. And it goes, there are things in our lives that do not allow us to feel free, for there are things that block that freedom. That reason is because the majority of us choose to be ignorant. What do I mean? That you choose not to see things for what they are, but only how you choose for it to be. How do you feel hearing that?
Well, I think what you mean, the way that we decide to look at things, our perspective, I feel like sometimes we feel like ignorance is bliss. So it's just like, if I just ignore that long enough, it will go away. If I ignore that long enough, I don't have to deal with it. So, I think that's what she means. And
I think you hit it right on the nose, right? If you ignore it too long enough, it'll just go away.
Yep.
What have you been ignoring for so long? That wall that you put up to allow yourself to be vulnerable in front of the loved ones that deserve that complete honesty of you. So when I heard this, I did not plan this because I did not know what you was going to share. Every episode is the same that way. I don't know how it's going to relate. So when I hear this, of course, the freedom, right, that you experience with your poetry and writing Spanish, the freedom that your teacher taught you in your life, that don't limit yourself. You can believe in yourself. You can overcome this. You can be who and what you are and achieve it if you put in the work. And you did. That allowed a lot of freedom. You moving on in life and learning about yourself through your writing, that gave you freedom. There's this last piece that you're holding on to, that a lot of us hold on to. And at times, I hold on to that little piece too. I'm not saying that I got my wall completely gone, but I would say if my wall was at 90, I say now it's at 20, right? Because a part of me loves being open when I'm on that stage and letting go. That's when I perform. It's for me. So going back to you, that last piece is holding you back from the ultimate freedom that you can achieve within yourself. Not even to like, this person deserved this wall to be down. No, you deserve that wall to break down. Because I think the hardest thing, Aldys, honestly, this wall, we give it so much importance, but this wall is like the least of the challenge that you have. Because honestly, I'm telling you right now, you coming from Dominican Republic at 13, leaving a whole life to come here, going back to zero, bro, that was the biggest challenge. And if you did not meet your teacher, like you said, I don't know where I'll be. So you made that happen. Your teacher taught you, but at the end of the day, you made that happen to be like, I'm going to make something of myself. And that was one of the biggest challenges. I think that was one of the biggest walls that you didn't put, that the world put. This wall put this whole fucking wall on you. I'm taking everything away from that you're accustomed to. When you come here, there's a big ass fucking wall. I don't want you to succeed. But you did succeed and you made it happen. And this little wall that you have left up inside you, we think it's huge, but it's not. Our mind make it more bigger than what it is. And I'm telling you, you can do it. You owe it to yourself, and you're going to see how much more you're going to blossom the moment you do that. And I know you're going to cry now because that is the end of this episode. And I just want to say, brother, thank you so much for sharing so much, for being vulnerable. While you were realizing it, you let go of a wall today. You didn't have to share the stuff that you had to share today in front of me. You don't know who's going to hear that, but you did it. And I just want to thank you for doing that, for taking the time, for being my brother, for supporting me through the years. You're absolutely an amazing human being. I'm always wishing you the best. And honestly, I am super proud of you. I am super proud of you because the person that I knew for many years at one side, the party guy, has flourished to many different layers that I didn't even know because you allowed yourself to show that. And man, I'm super proud of you. I can't wait to see you flourish even more. And your son is going to see that even more. And he has seen it already, and he's going to keep seeing it.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you for checking out the episode. Please help us out by subscribing to our podcast, writing a review, sharing with a friend, or leaving a comment. Thank you. This will help us so much.